The 2025 Crop Consultant Conference is the smart way to earn all your CEUs. No fees, no fragments, no memberships required. California Ag starts with you, and we're proud to support your work. For just $345, your registration gives you everything you need to complete your license renewal, all in one streamlined path. At the in-person conference, you'll get 2 full days of expert-led education, access to 80-plus ag exhibitors, valuable networking, a hosted mixer with complimentary drink tickets, and first-class meals and refreshments both days. This July, independent consultants and members of key industry groups qualify for an exclusive $50 discount. Just use your code at checkout. This conference is built for you, your field, your future, your CEUs, delivered the smart way. Register now at myaglife.com/CCC and make 2025 your strongest year yet.
One thing I want to focus on is potassium's role in some of these biotic and abiotic stressors. Let's start with the abiotic first. Talking about cold stress, you had some interesting points to make there and shared some research that had been done on that front, potassium's role in cold stress. Phil, what can you tell me about how it functions there?
So thanks very much for that question. Very interesting to understand that a lot of the stress factors that we do face in plants, particularly cold stress, can be managed with simple agronomy and nutrient management. And potassium particularly has a really good response to cold stress. There's a few modes of action that it'll work at. Number one, you're stimulating the plant to work with its normal antioxidants so that you're neutralizing the reactive oxygen species which are developed based on that stress, that cold stress. The other one, which I learned really recently, and it was very good for me to understand, is that the use of potassium in the cell actually reduces or drops the freezing temperature for the cell constituents. And as a result of that, the cell won't freeze and then burst open and destroy the cell wall. So potassium has just optimum potassium management has an unusual response with regard to cold stress management.
Definitely. And one that surprised me, which you talked about right after, Phil, was also its role in salt stress, given the components that you typically find potassium in. How would it have any effect on salt stress in a soil?
So salt stress, the difference between salts, your sodiums and your potassium is, unfortunately, your sodiums have a higher ionic charge to it. And when you put the two together, unfortunately, the sodium wins just about all the time. And so it's important, if you have an environment where you are facing salt stress, to optimize your potassium levels or your potassium applications. Being very careful of what form of potassium you use, because there's a lot of different forms that are available in the market to the various farmers that are out there. But optimize your potassium so that maybe you've got more potassium ions there being able to push back to some of the sodium. So flood your space, optimize your space with potassium, and you can manage that salt stress.
Definitely. And one more benefit of potassium that you were mentioning was on those biotic stressors, some of those diseases that could be present in the soil. How could that play a part into it, maybe even into an integrated program?
Yeah, so for me, when I did the study recently, this was one of the fascinating things that I learned. I'm going to give you the slide, so if you can put it up in the discussion at some point. But there was a study done by the Potassium Institute where they looked at 2,500 trials that were looked at with regard to potassium use and the way that it can not only reduce the influence of various biotic stresses, but even in the face of that, you can increase your yield potential by optimizing your potassium application for your crops. Absolutely fascinating for me. The plants, we work in a wonderful environment. The plants that we work with just have the capacity to do these things if we treat them properly. And so fundamental potassium management, nutrient management can play a key role in biotic as well as abiotic stress.
Definitely. And one more note on the biotic stressors in terms of an application of potassium for a potential mitigation of that. Would that be a reactionary application, or is that something you'd plan out way in advance for another purpose and it just has that added effect?
Super question. The fundamentals of agriculture is we do respond to problems sometimes, but if we don't get off our initial plan in the beginning, we're on the back foot right away. So make sure that you're planning so we understand our removal rates, we understand our soil conditions, what plant we're growing, all of those kinds of things. So we need to plan ahead of the time for optimum applications of potassium, knowing that it's useful in the beginning of the crop, but also very importantly towards the end of a crop when we've got fruit finishing and sugar accumulation, whatever those final stages of the crop are. So let's plan for that and not just be reactive. So yeah, good, very good question. Doing it at the right time, the 4 R's, right? Let's keep that in mind as we work with our potassium.